Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Thursday, August 15th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is our 2 of Swords in its reversal. A lot of this work that we're seeing right now in relationality to choices, a lot of that actionability that we're seeing right now. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to sing it from the rooftops, okay? The Mercury retrograde is not here to confuse your groove. I know it sometimes feels like that. I know we feel that slowdown. I know we feel that frustration. But again, that change in perspectives, that's that moment, that's that ability of feeling the difference between a breakdown or a breakthrough. Navigating these circumstances or situations right now, a lot of this work, so long as you're not allowing it to be that modality of something that strikes upon the center or the heart of one's own ego, but letting that kind of build into that space or place of practicality, of possibility. There's a lot of this amplification that's occurring right now in relationality to choice. Now, masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now that's being navigated has to do with a lot of that perception in relationality to the choices that you're making thus far and feeling that stability, feeling that security in that. A lot of this work during the retrograde. I want to say that there's a lot of this energy. There's a lot of this energy deep within the divine union frequency right now that is just learning a lot of that work in relationality to resolve an energetic commitment. And it's allowing for that state of actionability. It's allowing for that modality of like moving very quickly. Because we see even now that for a lot of that energy deep within the divine union frequency, that modality of choice, moving with intentionality, that's that moment that you don't necessarily wait for like the outcome. This is the energy that's moving with a lot of intentionality as they proceed forward from this point. And a lot of that work can feel very energetically difficult because we see even now that for masculine and feminine deep within the divine union, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that observational point in recognizing and identifying, allowing those moments and experiences that you're receiving now, not crushing you down, not building you down, not pushing you into not pushing you downwards, but allowing for that point of breakthrough, allowing for that point of practicality, allowing for that modality of making a lot of those decisions. This is a lot of energy deep within the divine union frequency that is feeling the affirmation in relationality to a lot of those commitments right now. For masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing, and I navigated, we recognize that there was a lot of that feeling of energetic conflict that may have been occurring in relationality to past experiences, past scenarios. We see even now that for a lot of that energy entering divine union right now, that ability of having what would have been an effective breakthrough and breakdown in the past, potentially going through a circumstance or situation that would have led to an energetic breakdown, the feeling of conflict that leads to breakdown, having that modality of mindfulness, experiencing conflict from a point of breakthrough. There's a lot of that energy that is feeling the reaffirmation in relationality to their own commitment to move deeper into divine union, specifically and particularly because you're seeing the change. You're seeing the change being enacted and affected as you go, particularly and especially if these are energies that went through that energetic conflict that immediately led to a solution point. This is the energy that's feeling the vitality of the reaffirmation and relationality to building forth and the recognition that the counterpart working towards an energetic solution instead of taking something personally. That pragmatism, a lot of pragmatism that's potentially coming through right now for a lot of the energy. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, a lot of this energy and separation is coming into that modality of, again, feeling that point of recognizing and identifying what feels like a breakthrough. What is that choice that's going to allow for that vitality of a decision being determined? Or these are energies or experiences that are feeling, again, the healthy separation of an energetic connection in recognition of feeling like one has done everything that one can. But if those external obstacles feel like they're too great, this is the energy that's coming into that state or space of healthy separation that then allows for that ability of feeling that easement and going forward, because this is not the energy that's experiencing those modalities from a point of heartbreak. It feels more like a point of energetic heart expansion, because in the moment or modality of not being able to have to take a separation point personally. This is the energy that is recognizing and identifying the breakthroughs and the standards that they're setting as they continue forward from this point. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our King of Cups in its reversal. Now, this is a card that we've seen that's been coming up repeatedly ever since this Mercury retrograde began. And this is a lot of the work. This is a lot of the work that the masculine is navigating right now across all of the frequencies, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Specifically and particularly for masculine energy that is navigating through a lot of these modalities, a lot of these lessons that we see that the masculine is working through right now, has to do with building into that new redefinition of what strength feels like. Because if these are experiences, masculine, where in the past you felt or you feel like you were taught that in order to be energetically strong, you had to close off your emotional center. A lot of the masculine energy is redefining that from within, particularly and especially for a lot of this masculine energy right now. If these were modalities and experiences where, and again, you were building an energetic connection with feminine, and you were recognizing that coming from a state or space of authenticity allowed for a lot of easement in relationality to decisions. This is almost masculine energy, and I have to say this, even if the energy is in separation, this is the energy that almost sees the fact and recognizes the fact of the feminine that's coming into a point of separation, identifying and recognizing the emotional value in relationality to what you brought forth. So we see even now that for some of that masculine in separation, that experience of seeing that experience of the mindfulness of the feminine, appreciating and receiving what you tried to energetically bring forth to them. Even in these modalities or experiences where that separation is occurring, we see even now that that's a lot of the masculine going through a lot of that emotional breakthrough point. Because a lot of those energetic lessons right now that are occurring in separation is showing the experience to the masculine that it is safe to energetically open up to feminine, because that doesn't create a space of, again, feeling the energetic wounding, but it allows a space for the feminine to match and meet the masculine with the same sense of openness in relationality to their own emotional center. So we see even now that this is a lot of that energy of masculine, even in separation, coming into that overwhelm of healing. But that overwhelm of healing, and I want to describe this, it can feel like a little bit of that heart opening, because this is the masculine energy that's feeling that onset in terms of everything that one can feel, but building into that point of emotional or energetic balance in the process. For feminine energy right now in separation, we see that a lot of that same work may be occurring. If this is feminine energy that is experiencing and receiving masculine from a place of being emotionally open, there's a lot of that feminine energy that is experiencing that in a state or space of, again, receiving that point of empathy, receiving that point of a consideration, receiving that point of again, feeling and experiencing the authenticity of the masculine coming forth to them at this time. Now, one of the things that we see here, and this is what could be a little bit difficult for some of the feminine energy in separation, a lot of that calibration that we're seeing right now has to potentially do in the expression or the expansion point of what the masculine energy energetically feels versus what feels like it can be effectively changed. So we see even now that for a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now, navigating those spaces and places with a sense of energetic empathy, while also maintaining the standards in relationality to what it is that you ascribe or desire in an energetic connection. Well, we see even now that this is leading to breakthrough points. The ability of the energy to make those articulations on the decisions that are going to allow for an easement as it relates to going forward into a connection. Or these are the modalities that we're seeing again that are just recognizing and identifying that the way that the energetic is feeling is there, but the determination of what needs to be navigated in relationality to maintain an energetic connection. Like that's that experience that is like requiring the balance point between the head and the heart space. Because for a lot of the feminine energy right now, that's the feminine that is utilizing a lot of that path work of not just rushing into a certain extent, because this is the feminine energy that is being energetically mindful as to whether it feels like it's energetically safe to do so. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy in separation, those conversations speaking towards the expansion of emotionality, articulating upon how someone feels versus what can actually be facilitated and how that can actually move forward. This is a lot of those hard conversations that may be occurring right now in separation. For masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, a lot of this work that we're identifying and recognizing has to do in those experiences or in those modalities wherein we see that a lot of these lessons that are coming through right now have to do in the expression of the masculine, learning that it is safe to be able to build forth in a place of being emotionally vulnerable. This is really hard work for masculine energy. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. And I know a lot of the feminine energy are here going, why is it so hard? Because a lot of the masculine energy has had those experiences wherein they were taught in some way, shape, or form that the emotionality, feeling the expression or the expansion point of one's emotions was something that was potentially to be avoided. So if these are experiences wherein, again, masculine energy was learning from a point of strength that told them over and over and over again, you have to avoid feeling your emotions. You have to avoid feeling your emotions. This is a lot of the masculine energy that's doing a lot of work and being able to try to articulate upon the emotions that they were often taught so many times not to feel. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, like working through that, I can almost see a lot of the masculine energy trying to come into that point of apology, almost saying like, I'm sorry, I never really had anyone to show me how to do these things. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of that work that's occurring here for masculine coming through in that modality. And that's what's so difficult, because that's why it can be very emotionally difficult for the masculine to articulate upon their emotions, especially if there were those points. And again, the path work in re-amplifying and learning that those modalities wherein, again, this may even be a lot of the energy of the masculine, unpacking experiences in the past where they tried to articulate their emotions to someone and someone told them, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't try to feel like that. Like that's a weakness point. That's a vulnerability, right? So we see even now that there's a lot of this energy coming into divine union of masculine, learning through the process of building with an energetic connection to the feminine, building that safe framework that is allowing the masculine to feel that openness and viability in relationality to expressing from a point of their heart space, and then recognizing and identifying that that is safe in order to do so. That's difficult, because in the modality of experiencing that, it can almost feel like an emotional overwhelm in all those spaces and places wherein you felt like you couldn't do so. So we see even now that this could be a lot of the feminine energy moving through those experiences and helping. Remember how we saw masculine helping feminine yesterday? Well, now we see the feminine helping the masculine. This is feminine almost saying to masculine. And again, I see a lot of that energy coming into divine union, almost articulating and saying to the masculine, your ability, this is the modification point of the feminine saying to masculine that the misconception that's occurred in relationality to feminine receiving the emotionality of masculine has to do in the way that it is presented. Because when a masculine is able to articulate upon the emotions, when the masculine is able to come into a mindfulness of what they are feeling instead of reacting to it, then it creates a safety network for the feminine. It creates a modality where the feminine feels safe around a masculine, because the masculine has learned to control the emotions to such an extent that they don't feel that sense or anxiety of the masculine that's coming into a state of a lack of control of the self and the modality of the emotions being expressed. But it recognizes and identifies an ability, a mastery, if you will, of the masculine that has learned to be able to observe upon their own emotionality and articulate with the feminine. That reaffirms the energetic commitment that a lot of this energy is experiencing right now, and almost articulating and saying that the ability to feel the emotions, to articulate through them instead of reacting to them, these are the energies that are building into that sense of certainty and relationality to the experience that they're building together, because that's the energy that feels like they're building a space or state wherein it is safe to be able to express without feeling the sense of having been subjected to the energetic energy, right? Because when we come into that moment, we subject another to emotions, that's when it feels like it's a weapon. But when we come into that modality of expressing it, that's when we try to build an energetic bridge. So we see even now, there's something about that work that's occurring right now for the energy coming into divine union that feels like it is restorative. Now, for masculine and feminine energy, deeper in the divine union right now, this could be a little bit of that work that's being navigated in relationality to the opposite. Why are we seeing that effectively happening here? because what we're effectively seeing for a lot of that energy moving deeper into the divine union frequency right now. What are we seeing is occurring in relationality to navigating and setting those energetic standards, right? This is that energy we're seeing here. There's some of this energy I'm seeing deep within the divine union frequency that is almost articulating to others to a certain extent that like the differentiation between being in a compassionate space is an energetic choice. It's not conditional. This is almost the energy that's almost articulating within the divine union frequency that's saying, remember that my kindness is a gift because it is a choice. So we see even now, like there's a lot of that energy that's almost feeling a lot of that expansion point. Because this is like a lot of hard algebra that's happening deep within the divine union frequency right now, specifically and particularly because it feels like that moment. I can see even now this is going to be a little bit more difficult for masculine. That emotionality that potentially rises to the surface, right? We're seeing here feminine is navigating situations with a bit more pragmatism. Masculine is experiencing them more from a point of emotionality. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy navigating those spaces and places, a lot of this work that is occurring right now has to do with those modalities or those experiences where, and again, what do we talk about? The ego, where we're getting a lot of these lessons and recognizing and identifying that the value and the power of the ego is not one that you feel like you have to energetically protect the ego. The ego is there to protect the self. I got to tell you, there's always an ego behind the ego. You don't have to worry about protecting the ego. You can't get rid of the ego if you wanted to. But when we become too emotionally, energetically protective of the ego, that's what we can often move off of our own alignment. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy navigating those spaces and places, this could even be a lot of that emotionality that's coming to bear here. We can see even now, this could be a lot of that emotionality that's rising to the surface. But what's occurring in those experiences? This is a lot of the energy that is feeling that emotionality. And it's not that sense or space of feeling reactive in that emotionality. It's almost coming into that space or place of being pragmatic, utilizing it in a way that feels like it is very intentional. Because that's that ability of, again, navigating from the emotional center to such a degree that expansing point, that point of emotionality, it's not something that needs to be energetically avoided. It's something that, again, can be utilized in places and spaces when it feels like it's productive, so long as it feels like the intentionality isn't being removed in the process. So we see even now that a lot of that energy, navigating that deep within the divine union frequency right now, there's a lot of that navigating through energetic frustration. Feminine's doing it more in a state of pragmatism. Masculine's doing it more in a space of emotional overwhelm. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is flying out of the deck. It's the retrograde. It's the retrograde. It's the retrograde. How many times do I have to say this? I know if you're feeling frustration points right now. I know that there are frustrating circumstances or situations that you're potentially navigating. It's the retrograde. I'm going to say it again. The retrograde is not here to confound you. The retrograde isn't here to just make everything clumsy. Often, that ability of identifying something in a different way, it gives different perspective. When we navigate something in a different way, the clarity that we potentially receive, it can allow for that sense of breakthrough. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy navigating those spaces and places, again, I'm going to say this over and over and over again, this retrograde period. The difference between a breakdown and a breakthrough is the intentionality that you bring towards it. So for a lot of the energy right now, coming into that state or space of being non-reactive to a certain extent, especially in areas where it may feel like your own ego feels like it's being messed with. You know what I mean? Like that ability of recognizing and identifying that to a certain degree. This is the energy that says, like, again, when things got hard, you get harder, right? Like when things get difficult, sometimes you have to push back. Sometimes you have to push a little bit of that like energetic motivation there. But that intentionality, that sense of bringing intentionality to circumstances or situations, this is a lot of the energy that's working right now in spaces of places of perseverance and tenacity deep within the divine union frequency. Energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, there's a little bit of cleanup energy. there's a little bit of this cleanup energy that I'm seeing that is occurring for some of this energy that is coming into divine union right now, but it's productive. It's productive. There's clarity. There's breakthroughs that we're seeing. A lot of this work that we're identifying here, and it's having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. Either these were experiences where, and again, you navigated, this is like first conflict energy, feeling some of that first conflict, being able to navigate it through it in a point of productivity. What happens in that experience? You immediately reorient to all of the spaces and places in the past where it felt like conflict was not building a bridge, but was creating walls, right? There's a lot of this work that's reorienting now, particularly coming into divine union. A lot of that could be a bit of that energetic recall, if you will, thinking back on the past in new ways. Because if these were experiences in the past where it felt like those conflicts were creating walls instead of building bridges, like a lot of that work is feeling the energetic safety of what you're building into an energetic connection. Because these aren't the modalities that are feeling, and again, we've talked a lot about the difference between like the conflict that feels like your two energies that are pulling in different directions. And the reason that it feels like a wall is because you're trying to yank each other onto the other side. Rather, that energy that feels like that sense of desiring the same things and just having different ways of going about it. We see even now that for a lot of that energy, recognizing and identifying the difference in what feels like it is a productive argument versus a flat out conflict. It's creating a lot of that sense of recognition as it relates to past experiences. Now, for masculine and feminine energy, if these were modalities that you feel like you fell out of your own energetic standard in the process of trying to build forth in relationality to trying to come into some kind of energetic solution here, what we're effectively seeing that for a lot of that energy here, that ability of mindfulness, that ability of perception, that ability of recognition to a certain extent, this is the energy that even in that modality that it feels like you may have fallen a little bit off the mark in relationality to how you would have ideally desired to handle something. It's a value point. It's something that feels productive. It's something that feels expansive, because the ability of being mindful and being able to be in conversations with the energy that allows for that moment of recognizing and identifying the accountability that then leads to productivity going forward. It's almost that expansion point of saying you welcome an energetic conflict, because that's a conflict that won't repeat itself, because you're coming into that state or space of immediately finding the practical solutions that are setting the energetic standards going forward. That's why this is not the energy that just says, let's let it go. Just let it go. Let go of it. Let's not talk about it. Because whenever we come into those modalities of saying, just let it go, I don't want to talk about it, what we're really saying is that's the energetic standard that you can come to expect as we go forward from this point. Recognize and identify that every time that happens, that's going to be the way that we navigate it. So that's the difference of a lot of the energy building into the perception and recognition between an energetic excuse versus a reason. What does an excuse say? An excuse says, I'm going to present something to you, and you have to inhabit it and recognize that that's the reason, like that is going to be the value point that allows me to persist in terms of doing something, versus the energetic reason that says I'm informing you upon something in order to facilitate the changes that I recognize within the self that I'm hoping to bring about as we go forward from this point. So for masculine and feminine doing that work right now, it's a lot of unpacking, maybe a lot of talking about the traumas in the past, because for some of that energy, we see here that some of those reactivity points, some of that volatility that may have come up, it's due to the fact that there may have been a time in the past where it was necessary, right? Because negative environments require negative tools, right? So we see even now, this could be a lot of the energy saying, I'm sorry I brought this in here, but there was a time or a space in my past where this protected me, this sustained me, this helped me persevere. So this is a lot of that energy that's learning to take down that armor and recognition that when we come into a space of healing, the hardest thing that we have to do is let go of the tools that we may have learned in places of crisis or trauma that may have protected us, that now are potentially causing those blockages. Fourth, while for masculine and feminine energy right now, in separation, there's just a lot. This is the big conflict that we're seeing right now for a lot of the energy that is in separation. Specifically and particularly, because if these are spaces and places where we see, and this is like a little bit of the misalignment that's occurring right now that needs to be navigated during this retrograde cycle. If this is masculine that is feeling the expansion point of the heart space, they're allowing themselves to feel their energetic emotions. We see here that there's a little bit of an energetic conflict that's happening between the masculine coming towards the feminine. This is a lot of the same work we saw last week. This is going to be kind of ongoing for this experience during the retrograde. Masculine just speaking openly from the heart. What's feminine doing? Feminine's protecting their heart. Feminine's got it here. Feminine's got it in a little box. Because feminine is taking a much more practical approach to situations and circumstances. This is the juxtaposition point between these two energetic lessons that is potentially happening to a certain extent. So we see even now, a lot of that is being articulated upon the difference between what one emotionally feels versus what can be tangibly expected in relationality to a connection going forward. So we see even now like a little bit of that disparity that's potentially occurring in a lot of the energy and separation could be masculine. And this, I told you, what I tell you, this is a little bit of this is the energy that we saw last week that was occurring for the energy that was coming into divine union. Now this is the lesson that's coming to the energy and separation. This is the energy of the masculine coming towards feminine from a place of emotional vulnerability. Feminine feeling a lot of that same way, but being very energetically protective in the way or in the space of identifying whether what they feel is actually practical, if it's safe to feel it, if there's a safe space to put it. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here the Emperor card, which we had a whole class on yesterday. If you'd like to see that class, head over to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. We can have a whole hour. You can find out all about the Emperor card. So what are we seeing here? This is a lot of that. This is a little bit of that retrograde energy. This is a little bit of that This is now the energy and separation. This is the conflict that we saw that the energy that was coming into divine union had last week. It's now coming down into the energy and separation. So this is a lot of that. It's the same. Just go catch up. Go watch. I'm going to have to repeat the whole thing over again. It's the same thing that we saw last week for the energy that was coming into divine union. So again, the difficulty here. The difficulty of the hurdle, masculine. I want you to recognize what's happening here. Feminine, please listen, because this could lead to all sorts of kerfuffles. Okay, listen. Masculine. There's a modality here. You're feeling the expression, the expansion of your heart space. You're coming into that point of recognizing and identifying what you feel. You're feeling very strong in that point right now. Right? There's a lot of that stability. Again, I'm going to say it again. Make sure that masculine. Make sure that you are articulating upon your emotions. Make sure that you are articulating upon your emotions. You're not reacting from them. Okay? Speaking towards how you feel instead of reacting from how you feel is the difference between coming into a space where the feminine feels safe, where the feminine feels in a point of being able to build healthy conversation with you, as opposed to coming into a space of becoming reactive in terms of how you feel. That creates a space or place of the feminine getting very defensive. There's a lot of energy here that I'm seeing that could lead to some conflict if it's not carefully navigated, because we see very much right now that masculine energy in separation may be coming towards feminine, being very open about how they feel, being like, this is how I feel, and being very firm about that. Feminine almost looking towards the masculine, saying what you feel is important. I recognize and identify that what you feel is important, but is there a place or space that can be inhabited there that allows it to be something that is going to be best going forward, right? This is the energy here of feminine being extremely practical. And this could lead to a little bit of rigidness, a little bit of potential conflict energy. Because we're seeing here that masculine is experiencing and expressing from the emotional space. Feminine is looking towards what they feel is best, not just for themselves, but for the energy around them, including the masculine. But this could lead to a little bit like I'm going to say it right now. Articulate how you're feeling. Don't react to it. Masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we're seeing right now for the energy coming into divine union. Oh, this is good. This is the cleanup This is the cleanup to that happening last week with this energy here coming into divine union. Because again, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now, if these are energies that are recognizing, again, how easily they navigated what could have felt like an energetic conflict, moving into a place of peace or restoration in that modality. This is either the masculine feeling the release and relief of coming into that experience, feeling that sense of energetic protection, identifying and recognizing that, and again, feeling the sense, and this is the Leo energy coming in, feeling the sense of personal accomplishment in a modality that they may have become more reactive, but recognizing their own ability to articulate through something instead of reacting towards something, that is helping the masculine build into that state or space of coming into that point of recognizing those spaces in the past where they may have been more emotionally reactive because they weren't in a space or place where it felt like it was safe for them to be able to really unpack their emotions. This is why it's important to build that vulnerability, because for the masculine to be able to really get to the heart of what they're feeling and to be able to express that towards feminine, it allows for a point of easement. It allows for a point of productivity. It removes the feminine becoming defensive, because the feminine feels like there's a bridge that's being built via the energetic connection, as opposed to like the emotions that feel like they're being wielded as weapons. For feminine, if these were modalities in the past, wherein again, you may have been overly defensive in a situation because of a past experience where that built into that sense of energetic protectiveness. This is a lot of that energy unpacking the reasons why. And what happens in that modality, and again, that's not an excuse, right? An excuse is something that we give that says that this has to be permissible. A reason is defining something because you've understood why, so that you can recognize a way to avoid it going forward. So we see even now that this is a lot of that energy, utilizing that in a productive way. And that sense of, even again, being mindful, even in a moment of not feeling like you were coming into a point of energetic perfection or feeling like you fell off your own energetic standards. It creates that feeling of safety because it doesn't require you to be perfect. It requires you to be mindful. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency, this has more to do, I want to say, a little bit of this work that we're seeing right now for the energy deep within the divine union frequency is a lot more of this masculine energy that is trying to be energetically compassionate while feeling the expanse of their emotions, but also building into that state of stability. This is more of that work that we saw that is being, this is like a lot of heavy work that's being navigated for masculine right now, deep within the divine union. Again, identifying and recognizing to a certain extent how to be strong and compassionate. How to be compassionate, but to an extent, right? So we see even now, like, that's a masculine energy, like building into that point of an energetic boundary to a certain extent. While for feminine, it's more pragmatic. There's a lot of this feminine energy that we're seeing to a certain extent that's navigating spaces and places with a level or degree of emotional empathy, but also just kind of letting that become a point of empowerment. So we see even now that for a lot of the feminine energy, this is a lot of the feminine energy deep within the divine union frequency that's just being much more practical right now. And so this could even lead to some of that same energy of energetic conflict that may even be occurring right now deep within the divine union, because this could even, again, this is a lot more of this masculine being a little bit harder in terms of the emotionality right now, and feminine being a little bit more like not necessarily coming from the emotional center. This is like the oppositional problem is actually what's happening here. Can I please have the 5th card in our 5-card spread, please? We've got here our 6 of Cups in its reversal. Of course, we've got our 6 of Cups in its reversal because, again, a lot of this work that we're seeing that's being navigated right now is in relationality to unhealed karmic connections. There's a lot of this work of unpacking some of this stuff right now. Like, there's just a lot, like, and a lot of that is navigating forward in such a way of being energetically perceptive in relationality to what feels, what looks towards, what recognizes, what feels like it's coming into a point of healing. Having that modality, feeling the energetic connection to a certain extent, right? And so we see even now This is a lot of that. This could be a lot of navigating outside circumstances or situations where in masculine, maybe taking on like more of that point of energetic frustration, more of that kind of hard line energy, right? Feminine, bringing forth a lot of that empathy, but a lot of that empathy that is also being articulated with standards, right? So a little bit of that, like a bit of that energy here that is being recognized and amplified, that may kind of feel like that sensor space of like building into an identification of what feels like it can be healed versus what feels like it's not in a modality of being healed. So we just see even there's a lot of that work in terms of recognizing those type of energetic connections right now. So this could have a lot to do with navigating spaces and places outside of the energetic connection in terms of identifying like what one can facilitate that feels like it's productive versus recognizing what feels like it's feeling like it's creating more of that space or place of just being, of just like, and again, it's that sense, and again, it's the identification that when you're trying to heal an energetic connection, it can't be one-sided. It has to be energetically mutual to a certain degree. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we're seeing right now coming into divine union has to do with, again, a lot of this healing. This is getting a little bit easier again for the energy coming into divine union right now because a lot of that harder path work was occurring last week. So for a lot of this energy right now that's coming into divine union, that identification, that process of recognizing and identifying, either again, if these are modalities wherein again, you had that problem, the conflict that immediately came into resolution, and it immediately created that state or space of energetic peace within you. There's a lot of this work that we're effectively seeing at this time that is feeling like a lot of healing from the past. Because this is a lot of that energy of nostalgia, looking back and saying like, that's no longer something I have to navigate, right? That's almost reorienting the perception of some of those experiences in the past that may have had those modalities of conflict that always felt like they were breakdowns instead of breakthroughs. Well, for a lot of this energy right now, even in these modalities of someone feeling like you slipped out of your own alignment in a moment that you were going through a conflict point, the mindfulness that the energy is taking in relationality to identifying and recognizing what they could do better is what is allowing this to become an expansion point. And a lot of that may be articulating upon the reasons or the experiences from the past that created those tendencies. All for the sake of, again, not building into an energetic excuse and saying, this is just how I am, you got to get used to it. But almost saying, I want you to recognize and identify that I see it too, and I want to work to try to facilitate healing it. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, in separation, a lot of this energy in separation right now, this is effectively that modality that is recognizing what feels like it can energetically heal versus what feels like it cannot. Because we're seeing even now that for a lot of this energy and separation, a little bit of this disparity that we're recognizing right now. This is either that modality, I'm going to see it this right now. There's something about the experience of coming into separation right now that is orienting and redefining some experiences in the past in a big way. Especially and particularly if these are experiences wherein in the past the feminine was used to the masculine energy, again subjecting the feminine to the emotions and the emotional overwhelm instead of articulating through them. This could be that moment of the feminine like feeling and experiencing that and defining whether that's something that feels like it's healed, like whether that's something that the masculine is bringing forth in this way, bringing it into a state or space of productivity. Because I see even now there may be a little bit of that volatility that may be occurring right now in separation. And a lot of it has to do with whether the feminine energy is building forth into a connection with masculine, wherein the masculine is having the ability to articulate through the emotions instead of subjecting the feminine towards them. So we see even now that there's a lot of that energy right now in separation that's navigating through some of that work. And it could, I need to say this, it could be a little energetically volatile. It could create a little bit of that modality because again, we're almost seeing here a little bit of that energetic trigger that's effectively being hit here, especially for feminine, in relationality to feeling whether the masculine energy is being energetically, being energetically reasonable in relationality to what they're asking from the feminine, or taking into consideration the implications of what they feel and how that could actually be tangibly built upon. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Two of Swords in its reversal in combination with our King of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Ten of Cups in its reversal. So masculine and feminine energy right now. This is a bit of the disparity that we're seeing for a lot of the energy of the masculine and feminine in separation. It has to do with the manifestation goals. It has to be a recognition point in relationality to whether there are mutual matched manifestation goals. So there could be a lot of experiences right now that are occurring in separation of masculine articulating how they feel towards feminine, and feminine being into that state or space of saying the feeling is important, but the plan is better. Like that sense of space of saying, oh, do we desire like that emotionality? Is it something that can actually be built upon in terms of feeling like we're on the same page in relationality to what we mutually desire? So we see even now that this could be a little bit of conflict energy that we're seeing that is potentially occurring for some of the energy in separation. And it's all coming through in the articulation upon the manifestation goals. Because we see even now that there's a lot of this feminine energy right now, even if the masculine's coming towards them in this way and articulating how they feel emotionally. This is a feminine that's staying very practical and pragmatic and saying, but do we want, like, how you feel is important, but the way that you feel does not articulate and mean that we want and desire the same things. The emotions are one thing, the manifestations are different. So we see even now like some of that difficulty in terms of articulating what those manifestation goals are. This is kind of, I want to say, this is either making or breaking a lot of these energetic connections right now in separation. Because it's that mindfulness and relationality, not just to how someone's feeling in the present, but what that actually looks like in the long term. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union. This is a lot of easement. This is a lot of easement in relationality to the energy that is coming into divine union. Because if these were modalities and experiences wherein, again, you felt the easement in terms of having a conflict and feeling like that conflict is reaching a point of healthy resolution, I told you, this is a lot of the energy that's suddenly recovering from those experiences in the past where it felt like the conflict was pulling you, was always creating a breakdown, was always building those energetic walls. It's almost the observation of the difference between what it feels like when two energies want the same thing, they just got different ways of going about it, versus energy that's trying to pull in two different directions, which always feels much more volatile. So we see even now like this is a lot of that emotional unpacking from the past that sometimes only comes in the modality of experience of receiving it from the present. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency, there's a lot of this work that we're seeing that is occurring in relationality to navigating the manifestation goals of others versus the energy within the divine union frequency. There's just a lot of this work that I'm seeing here right now. And something about that, like it feels like it's more emotionally triggering right now for masculine energy. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For feminine, it's a little bit more pragmatic. It's a little bit more practical. It's a little bit more energetically observed. Feminine energy is navigating, feminine energy is navigating something here with a lot more pragmatism. They're again, a lot of that work of not taking something energetically personally. Masculine may be having more of a difficulty point in something here right now, particularly in relationality towards feminine. Now, for masculine and feminine energy doing that work, a lot of that is the identification or the focus point in relationality to those manifestation goals. Because we see even now, like a lot of that work that's being navigated may even have to do with connections that are outside the divine union in relationality to, again, what those manifestation goals are. Continuing to get clarification between our King of Cups in its reversal and our Nine of Pentacles in its reversal. Whoop, as all the cards are about to go tumbling, may I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Wands in its upright. For masculine and feminine energy right now that is in the divine union frequency. A lot of this work that we're effectively seeing right now for the energy that is in the divine union is this modality of, again, and I have to say this is the energy that like focuses and stays focused in relationality to the path work. And a lot of this expression point, a lot of this expansion that we're seeing to a certain degree, it's helping to recognize and identify like what feels like it's energetically productive versus what feels like it's just energetically confounding. Because we see even now that for a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency, that modality of experience, maintaining like one's own perseverance through it. This is a lot of that energy that, like, again, if things get difficult, they don't break down, they break through. They continue forward to a certain extent. They stay energetically doubly committed towards what it is that they're pushing towards. Because this is the energy that almost recognizes, again, this is a retrograde period. The retrograde period is often here to kind of test your perseverance to a certain extent. So we see even now that for a lot, I want to tell you right now, like if it's feeling hard, I want you to push a little bit harder. Like if it's feeling difficult right now, then I want you to keep on pushing, right? Because sometimes we hit a little bit of those pressure points right before we have a bit of a breakthrough. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, a lot of this energy that we're seeing right now, this is the articulation of the potential breakdown that is allowed for a breakthrough. Because if these are the energies that navigated conflict in a healthy way, articulated and recognizes the distance, the difference, what happens in the space of having a productive argument, possibilities, solutions, thoughts you hadn't considered, seeing someone else's perspective that gives you a different point of view. So we see even now that there's a little bit of that regulation that's occurring in relationality to something here because it's creating that space or place of building into a perceptual shift. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, having that work, the breakthroughs either having the relief and release of recognizing and identifying that sense of space of going through a conflict and recognizing how productive it can be, or recognizing and utilizing that space of a conflict that feels like it might have gone a little sideways to identify and recognize the changes from within. They're allowing a point of productivity and breakthrough from without. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, this is the conflict energy that we saw that was coming into the energy that was coming into divine union that's now reaching the energy in separation. And so a little bit like there's a bit of this conflict space here that may be arising right now. And it has to do with the relationality between what masculine energy feels, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, versus what the feminine is looking at from a much more practical perspective. Because we see even now, masculine is very much in that emotional center, kind of building forth and articulating upon it. Feminine is looking more at the long-term, like viability, recognizing and identifying that sense of balance in relationality to whether those emotions actually feel like they're leading forth towards what could be the manifestation goal. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Nine of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Emperor card. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Strength card in its upright. Masculine and feminine energy right now in separation. This could be a lot of heavy conversations, is what I'm seeing right now for energy and separation. Because there's a lot, this is like force of will. This is like force of will kind of energy. This is like force of will kind of energy that we're seeing to a certain extent. Because what we're effectively identifying and recognizing to a certain extent is for a lot of that energy that we're seeing, that modality of experience is one that we're recognizing and identifying, is just creating that state or space of, again, these are the energies that are bringing forth, and they're saying to someone, like they're saying to one another, this is how I feel. This is masculine saying to feminine, this is how I feel. This is what I'm feeling, right? Masculine feeling the power and authenticity of that, right? Holding into that space or place of the emotionality. Feminine is looking towards masculine right now and saying, I recognize and identify that what you feel is viable and true, but you need to ask yourself, does it feel like, is it energetically productive? What does it look like? Where is it? What is the determination point? Where is it guiding us? So we see even now that a lot of this, like feminine energy is much more in orientation. Masculine energy is much more in feeling the energetic equivalent of what they're feeling right now. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. A lot of this energy that we're effectively seeing right now coming into divine union. This is the energy that's feeling the stability point of having gone through some of that energetic conflict over the last few days and feeling the productivity and strength of what's emerging when you're navigating from a place of energetic conflict in a way that feels like it is productive. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, masculine, this could be a lot. This is like a little bit, I'm telling you, this is like a little bit of that like Leo pat on the back that's occurring here in this space. Because if this is masculine energy, that feels like even like going through that emotional overwhelm, there's a lot of masculine energy right now that's coming into divine union, that's actively working on, I can see it actively working on the difference between, having the expansion point of the emotions that run forward versus having the ability to articulate upon them. So we see even now, like there's a lot of the feminine energy, seeing that sense of safety, or masculine being informed from feminine, potentially feminine articulating to masculine about experiences in the past that built that sense of defensiveness and relationality to receiving something from masculine at a point of heightened emotionality that can sometimes be very triggering. So we see even now that these are energies that are saying to one another again, and this is not the energy that changes for the sake of the counterpart. This is the energy that is recognizing and setting themselves on the path of change because of the value and strength of what they recognize that they're building between one another. So this is a change that says, I want to be my best version of self for you, but I know and recognize I don't have to change because of you. So we see even now like a lot of that energy is building into that state of support. They're giving each other support in that journey, and they're articulating the experiences of the past to help one another facilitate the changes that they're trying to make within the self in the process. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within divine union, a lot of this energy that we're seeing that's occurring right now for the energy deep within the divine union frequency, specifically and particularly has to do with, perseverance and determination right now. There's a lot of this work that we're seeing that's creating that modality of energetic frustration. And I see even here that there's a lot of that energy that is feeling like that modality of one's own energetic standards that feel like they're being crossed in some way, shape, or form. But even here we see that there's a lot of that energy deep within the divine union frequency that navigates that territory. And it builds forth in a place or space, because this is the energy deep within the divine union frequency that doesn't work to try to energetically protect the ego. This is the energy that works to a certain extent because they recognize that path of determination is such that they do, like they move forward in that way regardless. So if there are modalities here where energy is experiencing energy that's coming towards them from a place of trying to come towards them in a way or a space of someone being more reactive, taking something more energetically personally. This is the energy that's doing that difficult work of identifying it, seeing it, but amplifying one's own commitment not to return it back. So we see even now a lot of that work that's occurring right now is requiring a lot of that steadfastness in relationality to what may feel like that sense or space of being energetically, like personally attacked in some way. But having that modality of, again, recognizing and identifying that when you feel like that's not that modality that should require you to step out of your own, like your own intentionality. It's almost that modality that builds that affirmation and commitment to the self as to why you move the way that you move in the first place. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Emperor card in combination with our Six of Cups in its reversal. Clarification coming through right now with our Judgment card. So for masculine and feminine energy, deep within the divine union frequency, a lot of this work that we're effectively seeing is occurring right now has to do with that modality of, again, building into that sense or that space of determination. A lot of this work that we're seeing for a lot of the energy deep within the divine union right now is building into that sense or space. And I have to stress this. This is the energy that maintains the energetic standards. But the standards are the standards because the standards have a limitation point. So there could be a lot of this there's I feel like there's a lot of this modality right now for some of the energy deep within the divine union frequency that almost requires that state or space of saying to someone, that's enough. That's far enough, because we see even here that a lot of that energy in the divine union is navigating that space of the compassion that is compassion. But the compassion is a choice, and the compassion is protective of what they are protecting energetically. So we see even now, a lot of that work that's happening here is building upon or facilitating that state or space of, again, having to have that point of articulation, particularly in relationality to experiences where you may feel like you're navigating unhealed karmic connections that are almost expressing the nature, the quality or characteristic of the energetic connection in such a way to identify and define whether something can come into a state or space of energetic healing. Masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we're effectively seeing at this time has to do in that modality of feeling the easement, feeling the relief, feeling the breakthrough point, in building into an energetic conflict that immediately has a solution. Because this isn't the energy this is energy that may be remembering those past experiences where it felt like there was never a healthy resolution to a conflict. That the conflict energy in itself always just felt like it was moving you further and further away from someone. This is the energy that's recognizing and identifying that feeling of the conflict that feels like it's bringing you closer and closer together. Because this is the energy that, again, is very mindful of the fact of the difference between what feels like between energies that desire the same thing and have different ways of going about it versus the energy that wants very different things and is moving in very different directions. And so a lot of that here could be the release and relief of either unpacking the circumstances and experiences and articulating the sense of appreciation for how far you've come with someone energetically and recognizing the hurdles that it takes to be able to build forth with someone in that way. Or this is the energy that is articulating the experiences in the past that required them to build upon those defense mechanisms in the first place. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, a lot of this work that we're effectively seeing that's occurring in separation right now specifically has to do in modalities and circumstances. I see even now a lot of decisions that are being made right now in separation. And I have to say, I'm going to warn, I'm going to give you guys a heads up. If there's some, especially masculine energy right now, masculine energy, if you're in separation, please, and you're trying to communicate your emotionality, recognize and identify the difference between speaking about how one feels instead of reacting to what one feels. Because for a lot of the energy right now, for the feminine, I'm going to say this again. I got to keep saying this message over and over again during this retrograde cycle, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Masculine energy, when you come towards feminine and you articulate and subject them to your emotionality, instead of articulating through it, It creates an environment where feminine does not feel energetically safe, so they automatically build an energetic shield. They become defensive. So then there's no effective communication, because now the feminine's feeling that anxiety of trying to protect from the masculine that's becoming over emotional, because the emotions feel like they're being utilized as weapons instead of as tools. So make sure if you're having a modality right now where you're articulating how you feel, you make sure that you come into that state or space of articulating it in such a way that it feels like it is productive, that it feels like it is moving forward in a way that you're trying to amplify what can be productive, because there's a little bit of this disparity right now between how the masculine is moving towards feminine in relationality to expressing from the emotional center, but the feminine is not looking so much as articulating upon the emotions. The feminine are trying to understand what that looks like in the long run. This is a lot of the feminine energy that's building upon that point of seeing and experiencing and saying, do we want that? Like, your emotions are one thing, but do we share the same manifestation goals? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 10 of Cups in its reversal in combination with our 7 of Wands in its upright. Clarification coming through right now with our Hierophant. Like to see this. This is a lot. Listen, a lot of energy that we are seeing right now in relationality to, and this is why we see even now in separation, why there are so many of these hurdles potentially, because what we're effectively recognizing and identifying is this is all about, and this is the difference right now. We need to see this. We need to address this. There's something that's happening here where masculine is articulating to feminine their emotions as a way of almost saying, my emotions are committed towards you, right? But feminine is not seeing that like that masculine. Feminine is not seeing that the articulation of the emotions is some kind of pledge towards the feminine. Feminine is seeing the ability to recognize and identify the path forward in terms of what that looks like, what the shape of it is, what you want, as being the energetic pledge of commitment. So we see even now, there could be some of these disparities that are occurring between the energy feeling like they're talking towards one another about commitment, but they're talking about it in completely different ways. Because feminine is recognizing, and this is how feminine may be saying this to masculine, your emotions are your emotions, but your emotions don't articulate and identify what that path of future looks like. Like that recognition point, being able to identify and articulate what that commitment would be, what the shape of that would be. We see that a lot of the feminine is articulating this, whereas masculine's coming towards feminine in separation and just expressing how they feel as that pledge of energetic commitment. So we see here there could be a lot of room, right, for communication, miscommunications. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is the energy that's feeling the release and relief of moving towards an energetic partnership that can navigate even a moment of conflict and still navigate through it effectively. Because for a lot of this energy, that's almost that modality of feeling that sense of like empowerment. It's feeling that sense of energetic commitment. It's feeling that sense of navigating the hurdle. But even here, this is the energy that if these were disparities, if these were moments that you felt like you slid out of your own energetic standard, being mindful enough to be able to observe and articulate it and carve that path forward. Even in that modality, this is energy that's building into a deeper commitment, because this is the energy that says, I'm committed to changing, not for the sake of the person, for the sake of the commitment that they're building, for protecting the energetic commitment and making those energetic choices in the process. While for masculine and feminine energy, deep within the divine union frequency right now, a lot of this work that we're seeing at this time in relationality to some of this work that we're seeing deep within the divine union, a lot of it has to do with that I can see it even here. There's a little bit of that energy right now. I gotta say, some of the energy in divine union right now may be feeling like that sense of the energetic boundaries that feel like the energetic standards that feel like they're being effectively tested to a certain extent, right? And so we see even now, this could be a little bit of that energy that we're seeing right now that kind of reaches that limitation point, that's almost articulating towards energy, even in those modalities of feeling the unhealed karmic connections, that almost articulate and say, recognize that compassion is a gift. It's not an assumption. It's not something that, it's something that is, it is a choice, right? So we see even now that a lot of that energy working forward in that way is being very energetically mindful and not coming into a state of reactivity, but almost moving in that way of reaffirming their own energetic commitment towards that space of compassion. So this is almost the energy in divine union, protecting their own ability to maintain compassion. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Seven of Wands in combination with our Strength card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Swords in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy that is deep within the divine union frequency. This is like, I'm going to say, this feels like the type of energy around you at this time. Like this is a type of energy that's like, I want to say it feels frustrating because it just feels like the type of energy trying to get a rise out of you. I gotta get like, you know what I mean? It's giving me a little bit of that type of energy. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of this work that we're seeing that's being navigated here, specifically and particularly in relationality to, again, and you know, like that's that modality. And we see even now, there's like a lot of that experience that we're recognizing here in relationality to, again, that sense or that space of what feels like it's productive versus what feels like it's not. So a lot of that work that we're seeing to a certain extent, it's reaffirming one's own energetic boundaries in the process of recognizing what feels like it's viable and moving in the directionality of what it is that you yourself are trying to move towards, versus what feels like it is coming into that space or place of like energetically triggering you to a certain extent. Like this is a lot, like I gotta say, there's a lot of energy right now deep within the divine union that is potentially becoming more protective is the word. It's really becoming very protective is what I'm seeing. And so we see even now, like a little bit of that energetic work here is that articulation point of, again, navigating and experiencing those spaces and places where it may feel like your own ability to be compassionate, you know, it may feel difficult. But I want to remind you, if you're experiencing this, remember everyone else is going through the retrograde too. Don't take it personally, right? The difficulty here is I see that some of the masculine energy may be a little bit harder for the masculine energy to navigate forward in that way in some fashion. There's something about this here because it feels to me like a lot of the masculine energy is navigating those spaces or places that feel like, again, what do we see that happens in those modalities of feeling like one's own ego is being banged upon? It's like you have to look at something and say, don't take it personally. Masculine's having a harder time almost looking at something and being like, I want to take it very personally. Like, you know, because that's a masculine becoming very energetically defensive to a certain extent. While for masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that is coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we're effectively seeing at this time for the energy coming into divine union, this is the energetic unpacking of the past. This is the energetic unpacking of the past that we're effectively seeing here, specifically and particularly. Because if these are modalities wherein either you recognized and identified how easily one could navigate a conflict space and come into a point of productivity, it immediately reaffirms and helps you reorient upon all of those experiences in the past where you may not necessarily have received that as such. And that can be a little triggering because there's a lot of this energy that may be going through and reminding themselves of those experiences. Or these are energies right now that are navigating those spaces and places and articulating that the reason that someone fell out of alignment to a certain extent is because the way that they were reacting to something was the necessary modality in a space or place that wasn't energetically healthy, right? That's why we have to be very mindful in terms of where we put our effort and energy. Because when we're in a place that isn't emotionally or energetically healthy, it's too easy to have to adopt practices. It's too easy to have to adopt defensive moments that feel like they're not in alignment with what feels like it's healed because of the severity of the energetic experience. So we see even now like a lot of that energy that is recognizing that, being mindful, not utilizing it as the power of an excuse, saying this is just something about me you have to get used to, but almost saying I recognize and identify this within the self and I'm working to change it because I know it's not needed here. This is a lot of the energy that's like articulating upon those past experiences, building a bridge to identify and recognize what they can do going forward to allow for that point of easement. Energy right now, for the energy in separation right now, there's something about some of the experiences that I'm seeing right now that are occurring in separation that feel very much oriented or hearkening back to past experiences. So I want to say again, if you're coming into those modalities, don't assume that the past is energetically repeating itself. Remember that the value and power of the past repeating itself or coming back towards you is to recognize how far you've come. So we see even now like a little bit of that is happening here because we recognize and identify the masculine working through that ability of trying to be able to articulate upon their emotions instead of subjecting the feminine towards them. Feminine trying to like inhabit and hold the space of the masculine's emotions, but also being very mindful about whether those emotions feel like they are the expression point in terms of desiring the same things, having the same manifestation goals. These could be very hard conversations and they can be somewhat energetically triggering to a certain extent. And so even here, making sure that you're navigating that trigger in a way that feels like it's empowering is going to kind of help to a certain degree. Continuing to get clarification between our strength card in combination with our judgment card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our King of Swords in its upright. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is why I'm saying it's really, really important right now. Masculine, again, make sure that you are coming into a space articulating how you feel. Being vulnerable and articulating how you feel. Putting it into words instead of being reactive towards the feminine in relationality to what you're feeling. This is so important right now. Because I'm just seeing even now, there's a lot of this masculine energy that's almost trying to emphasize that energetic feeling. But for feminine, you have to recognize that the feminine is in this modality right now in separation, where the recognition point, you have to understand that there's a lot of feminine energy that is experienced in the past modalities, where masculine has brought forward the authenticity of their emotionality towards them. But they're learning to heal from the lessons that expression of emotionality is not the commitment to the mutual pathwork in relationality to what it is that you aspire and desire going forward. So there's a lot of that modality here. It's the words that need to be put into action. It's the emotions that need to be expressed into commitment. So we see even now that there's a lot of that determination point that's happening in relationality to what the masculine is potentially bringing forth right now to identify and articulate whether that feels like that is something that is productive, whether that feels like that's something that can go forward into that determination point of authenticity in terms of what the shape of it is, identifying the characteristics of the partnership in itself, as opposed to the masculine coming towards feminine and just coming into the expression of the emotionality or the feeling. It's requiring a lot of that pathwork of integrity for masculine right now. And this can be very difficult because there's a lot of authenticity that comes through in that modality of expressing one's own emotions. And again, leaving it up to the feminine to decide or determine if they also want to move mutually in that same pathwork with you. So this could be a lot, like I told you, a lot of separation energy today, or a lot of breakthroughs in relationality to having that modality of masculine bringing forth to feminine and saying, this is what I desire. Do you desire it too? continuing to get clarification right now between masculine and feminine coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we're effectively seeing right now for the masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union is built upon and based upon that sensation of working through into the pathwork of integrity with the counterpart. This can be emotionally triggering for both masculine and feminine, because if these were experiences in the past wherein masculine felt like there wasn't safe for them to be able to articulate upon their emotions, right? Working on that pathwork of being able to speak towards their emotions, not subjecting another towards them, not utilizing the emotions as weapons, but being able to articulate them as tools, building a bridge with those emotions. We see even now like a lot of that masculine energy, like that's that point of appreciation, because if you're building forth with a counterpart in that way, it takes two, right? That's the masculine recognizing that pathwork that they're doing in terms of doing that, it's also being shaped or matched by a counterpart that is showing the same strength and resolve in relationality and being able to receive it. While for feminine energy, this is a lot of the feminine energy. If these are experiences where you notice you have a tendency of becoming too reactive or too defensive, this may be feminine unpacking the masculine. Those experiences in the past wherein it felt like the feminine had to like kind of build that armor for themselves because they had that anxiety point in terms of the masculine bringing forth the emotions in a way that it didn't feel like they were building a bridge. It felt like they were going to be utilized as weapons. So we see even now like this is a lot of that energy that is learning to take their armor down through the act of trust. And that process of trust is the affirmation of what you're going to be changing going forward. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing that is occurring right now for the energy deep within the divine union has to do specifically and particularly with these modalities and experiences wherein we recognize and identify that there's a little bit of this energy that's becoming like, it's becoming very firm right now, is what I'm seeing within the divine union. There's just a lot of energy that I'm seeing right now that's kind of holding firm into some kind of modality of energetic firmness. Now it is different here for masculine and feminine, because feminine, this is a lot of that pathwork of energetic like resilience. This is a lot of that energy of work of like strength. There's a lot of this energy of, again, this is a lot of the energy of the feminine continuing to work on that sense that like the confidence that you build within the self exists within the self. It's not determinative in relationality to the pathwork of others, right? So this is a lot of the feminine energy building upon that sense or that space of internal strength. For masculine energy right now, a lot of this work that we may be seeing that is occurring right now has to do with the masculine coming into that modality of building a point of balance in relationality to their emotions and also to their pathwork of I want to say laying those heavy boundaries, but in a way that is like, you know, like that's the masculine. This is literally the combination of the masculine learning to set those energetic boundaries while navigating the emotionality at the same time. Right? This is like the strengthening of, this is like the fusion. This is like the fusion point for masculine that we were talking about between like the emotion, like how does one be emotional, but how does one also be strong? This is the masculine going boom and like fusing it, like fusing it together to a certain extent and being like, yep, I figured it out. And a lot of that is the masculine that's coming into that pathwork of potentially articulating from a point of integrity. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, continuing to get clarification between our Hierophant in combination with our Four of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Wheel of Fortune, and they're in its upright. I bet you weren't expecting to see the Wheel of Fortune in its upright during the Mercury retrograde, but here we are. So masculine and feminine energy right now that is in divine union. What occurs in those modalities or circumstances or situations? Like, this is why the past comes back to us. The past, that return energy that we often see that is characteristic of the retrograde cycles. I'm telling you, it is not here to mess with your flow. It's here to help you see and understand and recognize how far you have come. Because what occurs in those modalities where something from the past comes back towards you, but you feel that affirmation in relationality to how much you yourself have worked upon the path work in navigating experiences. We see even now that for a lot of that energy, navigating those spaces and places, but feeling the validity or feeling the integrity that allows for that productivity point. There's a lot of this energy right now that is going through those experiences of the past kind of reemerging to the surface, but having that same experience that reaffirms one's own energetic commitment going forward, right? Like that is like, that's a lot of that. I told you that path of like, that is the difference between just moving on a path, like, bloop, 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 you know what I mean? Versus really maintaining one's own intentionality as you proceed forward, right? So you have to think about a little bit of that energy. You know, it's like the strong wind, you know, like, are you on the path, or is there like a wind? Like if a wind comes, you're going to go, whoop, you know, like that's that moment that like, this is a lot of that path work that we're seeing to a certain extent in relationality to a lot of that work right now. So, you know, like, don't get frustrated, get focused. You know, like if someone's put the incline up on the treadmill, you don't go tumbling off of it. You put a little bit more effort and energy into it. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, a lot of this energy that we're seeing coming into divine union, this is the energy, again, a nice little strong wind here, you know, like a little bit of a, like if this is the energy that feels like this could have been these modalities that we were experiencing over the last few days, that we saw that this energy feels like the energetic connection was a little bit tested, right? The framework, it got shook a little bit, especially because we saw that there was a modality of masculine taking something very emotionally sensitive, feminine being a little bit more pragmatic. What occurs in that space or state? This is that moment that the energy feels the reaffirmation, because this is the energy that's almost saying to oneself and feeling the vitality of saying, we're not just energetically together because it's easy. We're energetically together even when it's difficult, right? We're energetically together even when there's a little bit of that energetic friction. So we see even now like a lot of that energy coming into divine union, feeling that release and relief, and recognizing that is something that like the integrity of the energetic connection is maintained and sustained. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, there could be a lot of this work in separation that's occurring here that is building upon those experiences or that path work wherein we recognize and identify that this is a lot of the energy. And this could be a lot of energy in separation, having some experiences that either feel similar to the past or the past coming back towards them. That is the reaffirmation of the difference between, again, the emotionality of something being brought forth. But again, and this is why there could be so much of this miscommunication that's potentially occurring right now between masculine and feminine in separation. The ability to articulate what one emotionally feels. But this is feminine almost looking towards masculine, being like, I recognize how you emotionally feel, but that doesn't necessarily mean the same as an energetic commitment. That doesn't mean the same as an energetic commitment. The way you feel is not the same as an energetic articulation of the fact that we are on the same path. You can feel anything you want, like, you know, but it doesn't articulate the fact that we want the same thing. So we see even now, like a lot of the energy in separation, potentially having these difficult conversations to see if there's, again, a breakthrough point, or if this feels like a regression, right? If it feels like someone trying to just kind of bring something back into an old form. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Wands in its reversal in combination with our King of Swords in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our King of Pentacles. This is the hurdle right now in separation. This is the hurdle right now in separation, because what we're effectively seeing, this is a lot, and I gotta say, there's a lot of the feminine. This is the feminine energy in separation, looking towards masculine, and this is why I'm saying even now, masculine. If you're coming towards feminine, if you're bringing that emotionality to feminine, make sure that you're not becoming reactive. Make sure that you can articulate what that plan is. Make sure that you can articulate where those, like the words that match the actions that match the words, because this is the feminine that is looking for the words that match the action, not the expression of the emotionality, right? Not the expression point about the emotionality. This could even be some energy from the past reemerging in separation right now. This is a lot of the feminine energy looking towards masculine if they're articulating from a place of emotionality and saying, your emotions are valuable, your emotions are valid. But there's a lot of the feminine energy that's holding their own heart space at a distance, because the feminine energy is healing from experiences where they recognize that masculine could have all the emotions for feminine on the planet, but it doesn't mean that they're moving in the same direction. It doesn't mean that they want the same things. It doesn't mean that they desire the same energetic outcomes. So we see a lot of this practicality that's potentially arising around experiences that is informed upon the past in relationality to not just the emotionality that masculine's bringing forth, but also whether there is stability attached to it. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now for the energy coming into divine union is the easement through which you've navigated a current conflict. Because if this was energy that navigated a conflict point, that ability of feeling like, again, you navigated it, but you were on the same page the entire time. You were both vying for the same energetic outcome, right? It didn't feel like so much like you were oppositional. It felt like you were just having an argumentation point in relationality to how to move forward to a certain extent. This is a lot of that energy that, again, it feels like that moment of reassurance. It feels like that moment of confidence, because that's the energy that feels like that, like, you know, that strong wind blew in relationality to experiencing something, but being able to feel the stability throughout that reaffirm the energetic commitment forward. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep within the divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now for energy deep within the divine union has to do with those modalities or experiences wherein we just recognize and identify that for a lot of this energy, this is the energy that is just, again, building into, again, this is some of that energy of the past returning, much like we see for the energy coming into divine union, but it's showing that commitment or that determination point. Because what do we see for a lot of the energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency? This isn't energy, like what happens in a moment that you move with intentionality? It doesn't matter what is occurring around you. It's more about navigating it, right? Because this isn't the energy that changes direction or changes course. This is the energy that reaffirms their own energetic commitment in the process. Final card for today's spread between our Wheel of Fortune in combination with our King of Pentacles in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. A lot. Look at this. We got so much of this energy here. We've got our Two of Swords and also our Two of Pentacles in its reversal. So just a lot of this work that we're seeing right now in relationality to energetic choice. A lot of that commitment towards it. And one thing we see that's really lovely here for a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency is this is effectively a lot of that energy feeling like that sense. Like a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency right now, having that modality or feeling the energetic commitment in relationality to how they're moving forward at this time. And a lot of that work that we're seeing, it feels, I want to say, it feels impactful. It feels productive. It feels energetically reaffirming. Because for a lot of that energy deep within the divine union frequency, often a lot of those triggering situations, it feels like that modality of something that's trying to pull you apart, right? When you're on that pathwork of intentionality, when something's trying to pull you apart, what often happens? It brings you closer energetically together. So we see even now, like there's a little bit of that energy that's observing that, and they're seeing that in that way. So we see even now, like there's a lot of that energy that's coming through right now in that point or that space of commitment as they continue forward from this point. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is coming into divine union, a lot of that energetic equivalent that we're seeing at this time, if these are modalities or experiences wherein we recognize and identify that these were experiences from the past, wherein that point of conflict always felt like there was that energetic wall that came through, always felt like there was that energetic barrier, that experience or that modality, recognizing and identifying and feeling the sense or the space of working with someone, coming into collaboration, trying to find an energetic solution, and feeling that point of easement. This is the energy that's changing their own opinion on conflict. It's almost like that scenario or space where they're welcoming it in their energetic connections, specifically and particularly because this is the energy that feels the reaffirmation in relationality to experiencing that in such a way that the conflict did not pull them apart. It brought them closer together. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now has to do with those modalities or experiences. If these are circumstances or situations where, again, there's something here that feels like it's coming towards a determination point, or if this is energy, something that's being brought forth to the feminine, if this is masculine coming, I gotta say right now, if this is masculine coming towards the feminine right now with a point of just kind of articulating their emotionality, I'm gonna just tell you right now, masculine, the words are good, the emotions are there, but there's a lot of the feminine energy that's trying to see or articulate and say, what do those emotions mean? Where do they build forth? Does the expression of how you feel articulate upon a commitment in relationality to what you desire going forward? Because there's a lot of this energy here that's like, and this is a little bit of that conflict space that we're seeing in separation. The difference between what the feminine is seeking, which is the identification and recognition as to whether the manifestation goals are the same, versus, and holding their heart space back a bit in the process, versus the masculine coming towards feminine and articulating how they feel, but also that feeling needs to have a course or a space of action. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now, we have here our 5 of Pentacles in its reversal. And that's why this is so difficult right now, because I see even now a lot of abandonment wounds rising up to the surface. We can't get rid of the abandonment wounds. Can't get rid of them. Can't get rid of them. We can't get rid of them. But one thing we can do is we can observe them. We can observe them. And I will say that there's I have to stress this too. Like, I need to point out, sometimes abandonment wounds are there for a good reason. You know, sometimes there is that necessity point in allowing oneself the modality of feeling the expanse or the expression point between what one is feeling internally versus what one is experiencing externally. So we see that for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming in like in separation, that modality of saying to someone, and this is the hard part, right? We could see even now there could be a lot of this energy that's saying to one another, like, you know, I don't want to energetically lose you, or I want to be able to keep you. Like, that's that experience of saying, but do we want to move in the same direction? Because that articulation or that amplification point, like, that's the difference between someone saying, like, come back here versus I want to go forward with you. So we see even now that there could be a little bit of this energy right now that's being navigated in separation, which is having to determine the difference between someone saying, come back here, versus someone saying, I want to go forward with you, right? While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is unpacking the abandonment wounds that may have created those triggers in the first place. If these are spaces or state, like, again, this is more of that articulation point, that if these are energies that recognize tendencies that don't feel like they're practical or helpful in navigating a conflict in the connection that they're in now, This is a lot of the energy that may be articulating to one another and saying, I want you to understand that I didn't just create that. That was something that was necessary in a place or space that required me to do so, right? Because difficult situations require us to build difficult parts of ourselves, which is why we always have to be very energetically mindful as to the spaces that we allow ourselves to inhabit. Because when you inhabit unhealthy spaces, we build weapons instead of tools. While for masculine, and this is a lot of that energy, is articulating the difference between an excuse, which says you have to get used to this, versus a reason, saying this is why I'm holding this thing. I would like not to be holding it. While for masculine and feminine energy, deep within the divine union frequency right now, this is a lot of that energy that needs to be navigated to a certain extent that we're seeing in relationality to, again, this is, I want to say, there's a lot of the energy right now that may be navigating the space or state of energy around them being energetically triggered in some way. And a lot of that is almost, again, like that is a lot of the energy that when someone is, like when you're seeing someone that's moving forward in a way that they're triggered, right? You want to have all of the empathy for them. But you also have to have that point of energetic resistance and not matching them in that modality, right? That's hard because that's that moment that you're it's almost like that sense or state of compassion, but also requires a point of recognition, because that's almost again, having to draw a line to a certain extent in relationality to, again, the expansion point to the compassion that you're able to put towards something versus what you yourself are receiving back in kind. So we see even now, there's a little bit of that work that's being navigated there that's requiring some of that point of recognition, but also is allowing a lot of that sense or space of affirmation, right? Because a lot of the energy experiencing that, it's it's kind of clarifying or giving you further context in relationality to the way that you're going forward to a certain extent. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, gracestrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website, so I encourage you to do it there. Also, a couple of updates before we move into personal readings for today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended the Emperor class last night. It was such a joy to be able to go over that card with you. We are going to be continuing our tarot studies on Wednesday, September 11th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. The next card that we will be exploring in our tarot class series will be the Hierophant. If you would like to become a part of that class program, all you need to do is head over to my Substack, gracestrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack will grant you access and entry into our classes each month. It will also grant you access to the recordings and course materials for previous classes, so if you've missed anything, you've got ample opportunity to catch up. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything that we're learning. And if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you will also receive a one-on-one mentorship reading with me, wherein we will assess where you are in your own personal tarot journey, and I'll give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage going forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. So thank you if you've already joined us at those classes, and I look forward to potentially seeing you at next month's class. Also, even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings, course materials. I post my weekly newsletter there, which will give you a full update on my live schedule. You'll also have access to any of the new giveaways that we're hosting. And speaking of giveaways, congratulations to the winner of our July tarot giveaway. We are now in the process of our August giveaway. If you would like to get on the list to potentially win a free private tarot reading with me, head over to the link tree in my bio. There is a 2-minute travel survey there. Filling out that travel survey will grant you an entry into the giveaway. But if you would like to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that survey to a friend, because when I pull the winner, I will be giving away not only a free reading to the person who wins the giveaway, but also to the person who referred them. So thank you if you've already entered, and I wish you the best of luck in winning this month. Finally, I want to let you guys know about a few new offerings I offer on top of my standard life path readings now. I also offer mentorship classes. These classes can be focused on whatever area or subject of study of interest that you are interested in pursuing. I take a very limited number of students for this reason. Also, these can be purchased on an individual level per class or as a monthly class series. That is 4 45-minute classes, 1 per week over the span of a month. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, 1 per week for the course of a month, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal tarot journey. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.